G'day legends, I hope you're all fantastic. I'm going to be going for a little bit of a bushwalk while I answer your questions on this week's Q&A. Thank you to everybody who submitted a question for this week's Q&A. If you've got a question you would like me to answer on next week's video, just pop them in the comment section below. If you check the video description, there's a variety of different ways to support the channel and get yourself some tasty free stuff. Let's go. Okay, first question for this week is one that I actually missed on last week's video. How would I go about dealing with the following issue? You've got the MXR Rockman pedal, a Friedman IRJ, and a VP4. You like the Friedman and the VP4, you like the Rockman and the VP4, but you don't like the Rockman and the IRJ together. How do you get around that setup when you can't bypass the IRJ? In that setting, you need a true bypass looper, in my opinion. So you could pop the Friedman into the loop there. If you just want to use the Rockman and the VP4 together for your direct tones, you bypass the Friedman and you got that glossy clean sound. If you want the Friedman in there, you bypass the MXR and you pop your Friedman back on with your true bypass looper. Last week we talked about chorus. How do I feel about the Free the Tone Tri-Avatar chorus? That is one that I am yet to try. I know loads of you have recommended it to me, and I love the Free the Tone pedals. The delays and the reverbs that I've tried are amazing. I love that they kind of do their own thing while maintaining a real classic aesthetic, and they bring some new sounds to the table. So I would love to check out the Tri-Avatar. Maybe a good one for a demo to compare to some other classic chori as well. And thanks so much for the great response to last week's video about classic chori. Playing with headphones and the tone sucks. I know the struggle all too much. It's basically like having to learn a different instrument, right? Because so many of us grow up playing through amplifiers, and amps are pretty loud. You might migrate to a setup where you've got some studio monitors or something like that. Still, you can crank it up in the room. The room sound is part of it, and you know, you can move your head around. You can get comfortable in there. You can scale the volume really easily. You don't have both your ears pressed up against speakers like with headphones. So I would say if you want to approach it differently, don't be afraid to be really drastic with like high and low cuts, especially high cuts. Like if I'm using a cab block, say my main fractal preset, and I've got the high cut at 6, 7, 8K, I bring it down to like 3.5 or 4K on headphones in there, and then use some ambience, like go overboard with your delays and your reverbs. Really make the experience something I think that you enjoy as its own experience rather than trying to recreate the real world. Like, don't feel guilty if you need to use loads of time-based effects, just in general, but especially with headphones. Okay, the next question comes from friend of the channel, all-around legend and patron Matthew Venuti. I've been having a good chat to Matt about some Sabotage stuff today, but he wants to know what's been my most disappointing guitar, pedal, or amp purchase. And this is one that I've kind of had to think about quite a bit, and one that immediately springs to mind was I bought a used Hamer Chaparral years ago from a local music store because basically it had this awesome fighter plane graphic on it. A friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, you like Hamers, right? Well, there's this custom one in here. It was a good price. It was a USA one, set neck Chaparral with the like parallel axis pickup in there, Floyd Rose." I was like, oh my God, I need to do it. This is gonna be my main live guitar. I just love the aesthetic so much. Set it up, played it at home, liked it, went and did a gig with it. Absolutely hated it. Like one of the worst gigging experiences I've ever had with a guitar. When I played it at home, I was playing it sitting down, and it felt really good and it sounded really good. As soon as I took it out, it just kind of hung on a strap really weird. The neck shape was uncomfortable and made my hand cramp up. The pickups didn't really work for what I wanted live. Like the bridge humbucker was too hot and the neck single coil wasn't hot enough, so I couldn't balance anything out. And like I saw a photo of myself playing it and I just looked uncomfortable and silly. So that one definitely comes to mind. Another one is up there with the, like, you know, you get a toy with no batteries for Christmas. Not long after I'd started playing guitar, my dad got me for Christmas one of those Line 6. It was like an audio interface tone generator thing. I forget the name of it, but I'll put it up here when I remember. Just could not get it to work. Like spent all of Christmas trying to get a sound out of this thing. And it was probably user error, but the one time I got a sound out of it, I really didn't like the way it sounded. And yeah, it was just kind of, you know, verge of tears kind of thing. So he was a legend, was like, look, we'll take it back and we'll exchange it for something. And we exchanged it for a Boss SD1 and a Boss EQ20, and they were life-changing pedals, and I still have them. But this brings us onto the topic of my favorite overdrives. I just mentioned the Boss SD1, right? So the SD1 has to be in the top 3 of all time. It's not the overdrive that I think is appropriate for every single setting, but it's very much just a standard. Like, I use that as the standard boost into all of my amps. If I've got a guitar that's not really working with a particular amp, you slap the SD1 onto it and it generally works. So that one's right into the top 3. I do like the fixed EQ boost thing, and I've tried a real TC integrated preamp, which is amazing. I have the booster line driver clone from Past Effects. Aeris Effects make a pedal called the Electric Dragon, which is a tube screamer and an integrated preamp in one. So can I choose 2-in-1 pedals? I've used that one a lot and I really, really like it. So maybe flip of a coin between that and the BLD clone. I really like the Crazy Tube Circuits Venus and the Superconductor. They're awesome. But if we're talking just pure drives, then I might have to go for the Past Effects TDY. It's like a solid state tube driver style thing. Basically just turn the treble all the way down, crank the gain up, and you've got an instant Gilmour tone on there, which I really, really like. So yeah, SD1, you know, either the TC integrated preamp style thing or the booster line driver style thing, both of those are great and turn a Marshall into a raging high gain beast. And then we'll go for the TDY. That's how I'm feeling today anyway. Let me know your favorites in the comments below. How about getting some people from the guitar amp modeling industry on the Gear podcast, like Cliff Chase or Matt Pacone from Fractal Audio, Eric Klein from Line 6? I would absolutely love this. Feel free to send this snippet of this video to those people because, I mean, just for myself, I have so many questions that I'd love to ask about what they do and where they see the market going. And I'm sure that so many of you would have such a great time listening to these people who are literally on the cutting edge of making really cool guitar noises, right? So that would definitely, they'd all be bucket list interviews, put it that way for me. I really, really respect all of those people massively. Here's a really good question, and one that I do think about a lot, especially when I'm demoing guitars. When I get a demo guitar sent to me, is it straight off the factory floor, so to speak, or do they receive a special setup? And I really have to admit that in general, I actually have no idea. I know I have played plenty of guitars out of the box where I've picked a guitar up from a distributor or a manufacturer and they basically said, okay, cool, the boxes have just come in, let's open one up and you can try it out. I did that with the Fender Player 2 Strat. Basically all the Fender stuff that I've demoed basically comes straight through here, and then I'm opening the box. I'm the first person to play it. So in that case, I do know that it's not a special setup or a factory setup. One thing that I will say is that I don't think I've ever received an email from a manufacturer who sent me a guitar who has said, how would you like it set up? So in that case, I guess I'm probably just getting stuff off the factory floor. I'm not sure if they're doing like special review setups or anything like that, but I sincerely doubt it because a lot of the time these things don't look like they've been tampered with since the final inspection on there. And I do like to take them out of the box and play them immediately, which I try to do in my videos, like do an unboxing, see if the guitar's in tune, have a look at the setup and things like that. And then over the course of playing the guitar, you know, if it needs an adjustment, I'll try to mention what I've adjusted in there just so I can actually play it. But, you know, the nice thing is most stuff is pretty good these days, and some stuff is amazing. Like the Tyler JTG that I got arrived in tune with one of the best setups I've ever played in my life. It's pretty wild. Can we get a lesson on the big stretch legato stuff that I was doing on the Ibanez S series demo? Absolutely. I actually just finished filming one, and that's why I've come out here for a walk to get out of the house. So it's going to be a short, sharp, really focused, large stretch workout style thing that you can do. Hopefully it'll be up at some point in the next week, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. It was a lot of fun to put together, and you too can approach my Aldi level Sean Lane impression. Last one for this week. How do I get out of a songwriting rut? In general, a creative rut, I find the best thing to do is, rather than bash your head against the wall, just do something that gets you out of that situation. Like go for a walk, which I'm so fortunate to be able to do. Like this is 3 minutes down the road from my house. At the moment, it's winter in Australia, so everything is super green and lush. The sun's out, I'm breathing fresh air. There's loads of great smells around. There's lots of cool things to look at and just, you know, have my brain engage with something which isn't like what rhymes with fire that isn't desire, that kind of thing if I'm writing. So yeah, definitely trying to expose yourself just to things that aren't songwriting. Go and listen to some tunes, make yourself a cup of coffee, have a cup of tea. Like just remind yourself that your fundamental purpose on this earth is to be a human being and try to experience the full spectrum of being a human being, and that if you don't finish a song right here, right now, it's actually totally fine and you'll probably be able to live on without it. Just basically living with it sometimes is what you have to do with tunes. So you know, by all means, try to have a consistent, disciplined regimen if you want to write songs and write riffs and practice and put together solos, but always balance it out with things that maybe are a little less structured in there, right? It's, as my mum always used to say, like, all good things in moderation, including moderation. That is it for this week's Q&A video. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Be good to one another, play your guitars, and I will see you all on the next one. Cheers.